I don't know about you, but awfully glad this whole shopping ordeal is over. I see some nods. Actually, I kind of like the online deal. You don't have to go to the stores, you just sit there and type. But anyway, I'm glad it's done, and I'm glad that a lot of people like shopping, because obviously our country wouldn't function very well if a lot of people didn't like to shop. And one thing, though, that probably many of you have noticed over the last month, or actually, I guess this year, it kind of started in August, didn't it? Christmas advertisements. But it seemed to have started a long time ago, and most of them are fairly obnoxious, but despite my general dislike for a lot of ads, once in a while, these advertising agencies come up with something that makes me laugh. And even better yet, sometimes small business owners come up with slogans or ideas or concepts or slogans that are actually quite funny. And not long ago, my wife Regina and I were out in Oregon, and we were on a small country road and got stuck behind a septic tank truck. And as we pulled alongside of the septic tank truck, there was a slogan on the side, and it was quite brilliant. It said, "Yesterday's Meals on Wheels." And then there was a guy, I went into a store locally to get some gas or some food or whatever it was, and I talked to the local. I said, "I can't believe what I just saw." And he said, "You ought to see the electrician, what he's got on his truck." And his truck says, "You know, I'm happy to check your shorts." But there are all kinds of really clever slogans out there, like the landscaping company that has a slogan that says, you know, "We're easy to get along with," or the photography studio that has a slogan that says, "We shoot people and pets." Perfect. Now, maybe the choir can help. I've asked the last two services for some help, and maybe since they know what's coming, they can help me out a little bit here. But there's some slogans from ages past that I am particularly fond of. You remember the ones like, "Sometimes you feel like a..." Right. And then, can any of you sing "Plop"? See, I think what we need to do now is actually get that on our website for our Christmas service this year. Okay, now, choir, you've got to dazzle us now with the next one. Oh, I... Merry Christmas. What a great group you are. That's fabulous. Outstanding. Yes, indeed. Sometimes there are great slogans and ads, and you may remember the one from years back developed by a national budget hotel chain. The company that promised inexpensive, no frills, and clean rooms. And you may remember Tom Bodett and his character and his personality that so beautifully was able to state the words for the Motel 6 ad. "We'll leave the lights on. We'll leave the light on for you." And what a great line. "We'll leave the light on for you." See, when I think about that phrase, I not only think about Motel 6, but I also, frankly, think about my childhood home. Not that it was no frills in a budget hotel chain, but just that I was very blessed to grow up in a house where there was lots of love and also a lot of light. My parents used to have fires and fireplaces, and literally almost every night of the week, family dinners with candlelight on the table. And then I grew up with this little Jesus light that lit up my room and would help soothe me as I went to sleep. And so when I hear the phrase, "We'll leave the light on for you," it takes me back to the time when I knew that somebody would be home, somebody would care, someone would be waiting for me, and someone would, in fact, turn the light on until I returned. Well, the other afternoon I was up at the Snowmass Village Mall, and I was there basically to people watch. I didn't need to buy anything, and I just love watching people. People are kind of interesting if you watch them. If you notice that, they do interesting things. And some of the people up at the mall were laughing and having a great time and clearly into the spirit of the season. But as I looked at other faces, I could see a lot of pain and heartache and struggle, and realized that, you know, this is not an easy time for everybody. And then one of the most poignant moments was there was this guy who, I don't know anything about him, but on his lapel he had an American flag. And so I thought about the last 10 years and the families of our military. And then I thought of the images of Dover Air Force Base with the flag-covered caskets and what so many families are going through tonight. But it was then that I was walking behind two women. I'm trying to see if they're here tonight. They were two local women having a great time talking and giggling, and I knew they were locals because I knew them and I recognized them. And the one thing I couldn't tell, though, is if they'd just been on a few runs or if they'd had lots of rounds. It was kind of hard to tell. That's why I was looking to see if they were here tonight. But I overheard, as I was walking behind them, I overheard one say to the other, so are you going to go home for Christmas? And I didn't wait to hear or listen for the answer because I was so struck by the question. Are you going home for Christmas? And the woman's question is really deeply evocative because just think about the word home and how emotional it is for some of you, and how many emotions it brings up, and how many meanings it has, and how many memories are associated just with that word. And there's many reactions when I say home tonight going on in this space as there are you who are here. And the woman's question is evocative and powerful. Are you going home for Christmas? Not only because it has so many associations, but because I realize that a lot of you may be thinking about home tonight, as many of us do during the Christmas season. And while I get and understand and am deeply brokenhearted over the fact that home is not a good experience for everybody, and far less than idyllic, I do know that for others of us, home is that place that's real or imagined, where everything is as it should be. Home, that place where love abounds and things are familiar, things are known and predictable. Home, that place where there are few worries and you have that feeling of being wrapped up tight in a familiar and worn and holy blanket. And I believe, and have come to believe over the years, as I've gotten to know so many people in ministry, that a lot of us have a deep longing inside of us. And some people will identify it as longing. Some people will say it's kind of a searching for meaning or trying to understand. But I think that a lot of us really have a sense of longing deep within. And I think that part of that longing feeling that we have within us is the desire to be home, whatever that means. And I also believe that on Christmas Eve, especially, that a lot of us have a longing to go home again, at least for just a second, to check in with what is right and known and good and true. But as I thought about the woman's question to her friend up at the Snowmass Village Mall, I thought about another question. And that is, when you get right down to it, where is home anyway? Where's home? I mean, when it's all said and done, where's home? What is home? So on that point, I have a story I'd like to share with you. It's a story that some of you know well. Some of you may have seen films about it. Some of you may have read a book about it. But it's a story that I think is, in fact, a great Christmas story, and a story that sheds some light not only on this night, but on the meaning of home. And the story is about a Canadian fellow named Bill who lived way up north in the coal country where things really were nasty in winter and frigid. And Bill was a big guy, and he loved summer most of all because it was the time of year he could get out, take walks, and enjoy himself. And one summer day, he was out on a walk across an open field, and as he was walking, he noticed that there was a bunch of grass moving ahead of him in strange directions. And he couldn't quite figure out what was going on, so he put on his glasses and he got close to where all this grass was moving in strange directions, and he discovered some very special young creatures. And with these creatures, they all looked basically alike, but there were some differences between them. Some of these little creatures that were in this field had light feathers, others had really dark feathers, some were slight, others were a bit chubbier, and Bill was just overjoyed at what he saw. And as he looked down at the creatures, though, he realized something very important. He said, look, these creatures have been abandoned by their mother, and they're clearly hungry. So I need to go back home and get them something to eat. So he immediately turned around and he started heading back home to get some food for these creatures. And he walked along and he heard a sound behind him. Then he picked up his pace, started walking faster, and the sound got faster. And he, kind of broke into a jog. And then he stopped, he turned around, the creatures were following him home. And he was amazed. And when he got back home, he ran into the kitchen, found him something to eat, went back outside, leaned down, spread out the food, and they began to nibble away, and a friendship and a bond developed. But late that summer, one evening, Bill woke up with a thought that scared him to death. And that is that he realized that these creatures had been somewhat dependent upon him and that they were with him, but he knew that if they did not get down south, that when winter hit, they would die. And so he had a problem. He knew that they would die unless they went down south, and so his problem was, well, how do I communicate with these creatures? How do I talk to them? I don't honk. I'm not a Canada goose like these creatures. Canada geese, those magnificent birds that fly north and south each and every year. Well, Bill wondered what to do, and he was perplexed. He was very concerned because of the dependency these birds had on him, and he knew that he had to get them home. He had to get them down south. But one morning, as Bill was eating breakfast, he heard this strange buzzing noise outside, and he ran outside. He looks up, and he sees an ultralight flying machine. Those little hang glider type things, with a little engine on the back. And immediately, he had a brilliant idea. He thought to himself, if I can't convince the birds to fly with my words, then I'm going to have to lead them home myself. I'm going to have them follow me home, and I'm going to have to teach them. So what he did is he built an ultralight flying machine so it would look exactly like a Canada goose. Great idea. So he got to work and worked day after day after day, and he worked hour after hour, and finally this thing that looked like a giant Canada goose was done. And he rolled it out of his garage, and at first, the birds actually followed this machine down the driveway after. They were interested in this ultralight machine. And after weeks and weeks and weeks of kind of progressing through the training, the Canada geese were actually willing to fly behind him as he flew in his ultralight. Amazing. Well, on a cool late fall morning, Bill headed up into the sky with the geese following close behind, and as he flew, the birds followed and followed and followed, and after a 6-day journey, he led this abandoned flock of geese home, where they would be warm and safe for the entire winter. And because he had taken this risk, he saved them. I've just shared with you a story that some of you may know. It's an adapted story of a guy named Bill who saved a flock of Canada geese from perishing and freezing because he was willing to fly south with them and to teach them how to go home. And it is this story, as I've thought about it, that really reminds me of another story. A story that is, in fact, far more powerful, far more potent, and a story that is going on right now. And that's the story of Jesus. And it's on that first Christmas morning in Bethlehem that God was born as a human being. Now, I know how much we love this area and the mountains and the streams and the whole thing, but picture Mount Daly, picture Capitol Peak, picture Snowmass Mountain, picture Garrett Peak, picture Sopus, picture the beauty of the Rocky Mountains, picture the most magnificent places on earth, picture the people that you love in this world, picture all of your blessings, and think of the God who created all of these things. And just imagine that God had this radical idea to become a human being, to come among us. And it is God's birth in the flesh that we celebrate tonight. And God came to us in the flesh as Jesus that first Christmas because it was the best way that he could communicate with us directly and the only way that he could save us. And just for a moment, think of the affection and love that guy Bill had for the geese. But that pales in comparison to the love that God through Jesus Christ has for each one of you. But unlike Bill, who just pretended to be a Canada goose, God did not pretend to become a human being when he came to us in the flesh as Jesus. You see, Jesus became one of us, fully divine and fully human. And God came to us because he understands that to love us, to care for us, that he had to do that. And I believe that God also understood something else, and that is that you and I, as human beings, are ultimately longing for something very profound. And I think what we're longing for is a home, a perfect home that will always be, a home that is not just a place, a home that is not just something in the past, a home that is in fact something living and guiding in a place that can sustain us in the present. A home to which you can go to no matter what's going on in your life. A home you can go to that is safe, where you are loved in all the right ways. A home you can travel to anytime. And so, in the manicness and the busyness of the hours and the days ahead, I'd like for you to do something when you find a moment of quiet. And what I want you to do, invite you to do, in a moment of quiet or in prayer, is I want you, in your mind, to head to the manger. To head to the manger. And in your mind and in prayer, head to that manger, and I think what you'll discover are these outstretched arms reaching out toward you, trying to grab you and take a hold of you, take a hold of your hand. You see, God is waiting right now at this moment in your life. He's waiting to throw his arms around you, and he's also waiting for something else. In the quiet moment of the hours and days ahead, I want you to try and listen really carefully. And while you may not hear the sounds of a Canada goose, and you may not hear Tom Bodette saying, "I'll leave the light on for you," I believe that if you're really quiet and you pay close attention, you will hear the voice of Jesus speaking to you. And what Jesus is saying to you is, follow me. Follow me. Come on, really, really follow me. Not kind of or just a little bit. Really follow me. Trust me. Let me lead you. Follow me. And I also believe that Christ will say to you, follow me and follow me home. And when you do that, you're going to discover something really extraordinary that can be life transforming. And that is that if you follow me, you will discover that where I am is where your home shall be. And as I am everywhere, your home is really everywhere. What an amazing gift. And so let us pray.